This podcast may contain offensive language, harsh criticisms of religion, the occasional political rant, and science talk, which some see as alternative facts.
In fact, I don't even like the multiverse, but I've learned to force my beliefs to conform to the evidence of reality. That's where science differs from religion.
Now, I am absolutely convinced that the main source of hatred in the world is religion.
If you based the design of rockets on science, they reach the moon. It works. Bitches.
Welcome to the Recklessly Skeptical Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Today is February 12th. My name is Joe.
I'm Josh.
And I am Matt.
The second half of this podcast, make sure you all stick around because we are going to be interviewing Shalise Blythe. She is the head of the Satanic Temple chapter here in Utah.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Hail Satan.
Alrighty, well, let's get to our stolen thought. Today, our stolen thought comes from FDR. Quote, democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education.
Yeah, Betsy DeVos. Boo.
Boo.
Boo on you.
All right. That was weird. So, our first story today is coming from Gallup.com. It's the Gallup Daily Trump Job Approval. So, as of today, he has a 53% disapprove and a 41% approve. So
it's dropping.
It's getting worse for him.
Yeah, he's negative 12, and the disapproval rate, I think, is tied for the highest it's ever been, or close to it. And his approval rate is as low as it's ever been, for sure.
Yep, and then the real unemployment numbers, 9.4. Gallup Good Jobs, 44.3%. Economic confidence is at 7, so it's down 1 from yesterday. And, yeah, Trump approval is 41%. It's going down.
Going down like a chair on the Titanic. I think that's the saying, right?
I've never heard it.
No, it's rearranging the chairs of the Titanic is the saying that I'm bastardizing.
Rearranging the chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, it's a way of saying what you're doing is futile. Futile.
Okay.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Because there's no point. It's all going down.
Yeah, pretty much. But at least it looks good while it's going down.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, I think it's you, buddy.
Oh, no, it's not.
I think it is. Matt just wanted to do the Gallup poll to open, and then it's you.
I'm aware. I'm just messing with you.
And drinking coffee. Come
well,
on, man.
I need coffee.
Get your fucking shit together. I thought Matt was the hungover
My head
motherfucker.
is in the game. My head is in the game.
All right.
All right, let's go.
Unlike the Jazz, who
God
lost
damn it.
last
Shut
night.
up. Shut up.
No, dude, but when they played, who was it? The
Dallas
Pelicans or whatever, dude, they rocked
and
them.
we went up 21 against the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
We had 12 minutes of over 130 points per or 1.3 points per possession, which is insane. It's the best basketball by far that I've ever seen them play.
Then
and
the
then
third
they lose.
quarter, yeah,
and
dude.
then they lose.
The third quarter
And then
was
they
just
lose.
horrible.
Yeah, just let's not talk about it.
Yeah. Oh my god. It was. I don't even think they scored once in the third.
No, they did. It was halfway through the third that they got up 21 points. And
Was
then,
it? Okay,
Then they
was it
allowed
the
a 7-0.
fourth?
Then they allowed a 7-0 run. But let's get on to some real shit.
Okay. All right. So this is coming from I fucking love science. Do you love science, everybody?
Woohoo, science.
All right, science.
Dun, dun, dun.
But this isn't the science story.
Oh, okay.
All right. So this is more of a political story coming out of Utah.
Oh, great.
So it is a profound understatement to say that the Republican Party is not the most scientifically minded of political groups.
Really?
Yes. Federal science is now being censored and threatened like never before, and one little girl has had enough of it. During a town hall style Q&A session in Utah Salt Lake City, top GOP lawmaker Jason Chaffetz was not having the best of times, to put it lightly. Fielding questions about corruption and a lack of oversight, education, science, and the newly anointed president's behavior, he was greeted with near continuous boos, jeers, heckles, and even a tiny bit of strong language. At one point, A grade school girl stood up and asked what Chavez would do when it comes to protecting the environment. Already sensing that he wouldn't give an answer, she gave an answer that, for the GOP at large, has no comeback. She said, quote, "Do you believe in science? Because I do." And the room instantly erupted into loud cheers and applause. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what hope looks like. So Chavez gave a horrific word salad of a non-answer. "I don't pretend to have all the answers," he said, adding that there are good people on both sides of the aisle. The implication here is
Bullshit.
The implication here is that there are people that want to protect the environment and people who don't want to. It's rare you actually meet people that say, with no sense of irony whatsoever, "Fuck the environment." This particular exchange is glorious enough in isolation, but it takes on a more significant meaning when you think about what is happening to American science. The president is a profoundly anti-intellectual man, someone who has no idea what wind is, or who thinks vaccines cause autism, and who often thought that climate change is an international conspiracy specifically designed to hurt the United States.
Yeah, Senator Inhofe. Fuck him.
His administration is full of climate deniers, people who want to ban the Environmental Protection Agency, and even want to destroy the Department of Education, something that Chavez himself has signed on to.
Yeah, and that was I've seen most of the town hall. I'd say like 60% of it, and so I have to finish the last 45 minutes of it. But he gets booed the entire time. Like, it was completely overrun by people opposing him.
But they were paid to be there from other states, is what he is saying now.
When we have Josh on, we'll have to ask him how his Soros check was for showing up to that. God. But I mean, that was the most outstanding part, because to me, like, watching it, you kind of feel a little bad for him because he really is in front of a crowd that's against him, and he gets booed a lot. But he's like, what do you guys think about Betsy DeVos and they're like, boo. And then he's like, well, I want to get rid of her too. I support the bill to get rid of the Department of Education. Now, at that moment, like a light switched, or something switched in my brain, and I'm realizing that he has no problem being in front of that crowd and being booed.
Yeah,
because
he doesn't care.
He's still, like, for him, he was antagonizing the crowd intentionally at that point. He was trying to say, you know what? I've got the power. You guys are all fucking... I don't give a fuck about what you guys think or what you guys have to say. I know who my master is, or I know who I'm serving.
I know.
And it's not you.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm here. I'm in my seat. He doesn't give a fuck about the popular view of his contingency.
He seemed so smug.
And same with, what's his name? The senator, Orrin Hatch. He had... People had been messaging him and calling him so much that he turned off the phones on Sunday night, Monday morning at one point. And this is after you and me met in that bar, and I had called him that morning, and I was able to leave a voicemail. And he put out a statement on Facebook saying, let's get rid of the fake news. Here's the facts on Betsy DeVos. And it was something from her own foundation. Like, these guys don't give a fuck about what we think, because she's been the most unpopular person. And you're talking about he's delivering this news to a crowd of people who are legitimately concerned. Like, is my child going to get a real education, or is it going to get undermined by the voucher program, which is eventually is going to go away? So how it looks like it's going to go down is they're going to be vouchers to make private institutions like essentially free. So, like, you'll get a tax credit for the $2,000 it costs.
And so my taxes will pay for these schools that teach that the Earth is 10,000 years old.
But you'll get a tax credit, and this is at first. So phase one is you get a tax credit. You can send your kid to any private school, essentially covering the cost.
Okay.
And then what will end up happening is they'll cut that tax credit eventually, and then the public school, the public education that needs the money is going to be completely trashed. But go ahead.
When he actually had the guts to say to the crowd that they would be happy with, or quote, happy with the bill to abolish the Department of Education, he was met with the vocal equivalent of being locked in chains and pelted with rotten fruit. The point here is that despite this assault on science and knowledge, people aren't burying their heads in the sand. The resistance against the willful ignorance is rising, and there's no better example of this than a child standing up to the U.S. government and tearing it a new one. The best part was that after she asked her question, she ran through the crowd high-fiving everyone.
That is cool.
It's awesome.
And it was just a grade school girl Who asked?
Yeah, I saw.
Do you believe in science? Because I do.
I saw that clip, and she was very well spoken for her age. She made her point, and she understood it,
Yeah.
which was really, really cool. You guys know about the term is civil asset forfeiture. Have you guys heard of that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't.
You have not, Matt.
Are you talking about the Pennsylvania?
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second.
All
But
right.
in Texas, so actually across the country, what police are allowed to do is, if you have cash or anything good that may be used against you, and I put that in quotes because they really seize anything of value. The police department can.
Oh,
And they
during
can
an
turn-
investigation, and
and
they
then-
don't have to give it back to you.
Yeah, they don't.
Yes.
And this is included households. Like they've seized households and then ended up auctioning them off. And this is a way that police departments have been getting money. So police departments like it because it's a way to get money that isn't taxes, but they're, in my mind, illegally and forcefully taking people's private property in order to raise funds for their police department. And it's like a slush fund for them.
I saw an article. It was saying that police have stolen more property from American citizens than any actual crime theft every year.
Yeah, and
Like it's twice as much.
And I definitely recommend you see last week's tonight's clip on it. It's like 45 minutes long. It's really entertaining, and he does a good job breaking down what is so morally despicable about this. But from the story, the sheriff. The sheriff from Rockwall County, Texas, griped about a Texas state senator seeking to change the law so that a conviction would be required before a suspect's assets could be seized. The sheriff joked that the cartel would build a monument to the legislature. And so in Donald Trump, and this is to Donald Trump in a meeting, and Donald Trump asked, "Who is the state senator? Do you want to give his name? We'll destroy his career." So he's saying, I'm going to use my presidential power to destroy the career of one of your state senators or state representatives.
And all this representative is trying to do is
Make it so that you cannot have your property taken from you by the
unless you've been committed or
convicted. Yes.
convicted of the crime and stuff.
Yes.
Instead
So yeah, they can't just like pull you over, and that's like the abuse of this has been that they go to places where there no tourism is popular, and then they stop people, seize the cash that they have because they're likely to have a lot of cash. Say, hey, this might mean you're doing a drug deal potentially, and then they take that cash or whatever other possessions they might have, a fast car or something like that, and then they take it. And again, the money that's taken from civil asset forfeiture is a slush fund for them because they don't have to. There's not the same oversight that there is with tax dollars that are given to the police departments.
Yeah.
So Pennsylvania State Senator Dalen Leach went after President Trump on Tuesday, banning him.
Heard this, Matt?
Branding him, and this is on. I think it was on Twitter. They said this. He's branding him a fascist, loofah-faced shit gibbon.
Yeah.
And challenged him to come after me.
He I believe his tweet was like I support the same bill, President, and he tweeted it to Trump. And he said, I support the same bill. Why don't you try coming after me, you fascist, loofah-faced shit gibbon? And then he posted it on his Facebook, and then it's still up. And then his assistant came out with a statement saying he's really pissed off, and he strongly agrees with what he said.
And so Leach, a Philadelphia area Democrat, posted a political report on Facebook about the president's recent White House meeting with county sheriffs across the country. During the meeting, one sheriff brought up that civil asset forfeiture. So if you want to check out the story, it is Come After Me, Pennsylvania. Paul goes off on Gibbon Trump in a profanity-laced Facebook post.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my favorite new term for Donald Trump is a fascist, loofah-faced shit gibbon.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Donnie Tiny Hand Shit Gibbon.
All right, guys. So Vermont is once again the least religious state in the country.
Woohoo! You go Vermont.
Yeah, and plus they give us Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I love Vermont.
So, Vermont, they dethroned New Hampshire to return to the top position as the least religious state. So,
does it get cold there in Vermont?
Yeah, of course it does. It's up north. It's north of New York, so it gets more snow than New York.
I want to move somewhere extremely secular.
This poll is coming from Gallup. So Gallup's annual ranking shows that only 21% of the people in Vermont consider themselves very religious, the lowest number in the nation. Meanwhile, 58% of people in the state call themselves non-religious. No one beat them on that front either. So, last year's champion, New Hampshire, apparently rose to grace. Only 20% of the citizens last year were very religious, but that number jumped to 29% this year. That's kind of weird how it jumps like that. But
Yeah, I mean, it probably shows that there's more errors in polling than what you would think.
Mm-hmm.
And so the window plus or minus 4.5% is the typical on this type of poll.
So, as for the other side, Mississippi is the most religious state in the country for the 9th straight year. 59% of people there are very religious compared to only 12% who are non-religious. And then, this is pretty funny, makes you wonder, who the hell are these 12% of non-religious people in Mississippi?
Yeah.
So that's the article, real short, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 12.
Very cool.
How many percent of Mississippi are religious or non-religious? Was it
It
12?
said
12%.
12, yeah.
Jesus, that would be awful. I'm glad that even Utah, like, at least we have some community here that is atheistic, and it's not impossible to find people who are atheists or non-religious.
I wonder what the numbers are here in Utah.
Probably pretty high. I mean, we could probably find the source material on that and look at it. Which, with the magic of editing, I found it right away. So Utah is at 54% very religious, 16% moderately religious, and then 30% non-religious.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So and so we have the third highest very religious population, and then like going the opposite way, we're probably right in the middle of the pack as far as non-religious goes.
So we're not all Mormons here.
Yeah, either you're Mormon or you're not is what it looks like. The chart is.
It's either you're Mormon or
Yeah.
non-religious.
Pretty much.
But there's a pretty big Hispanic Catholic community here in Utah, I think.
Yeah, so, and actually this is interesting. Going by moderately religious, we are the lowest.
Really?
Yeah, we're absolutely, by far, the only one in the teens.
So
Because
it's
everybody's
either-
spiritual.
It's either you're extremely religious or
Yeah.
you just ain't.
Yeah, you
At
just
all.
don't care, or
Yeah.
you're an atheist. That's funny.
Welcome to Utah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, the Mormon church does stress a lot about being a weekly member. So, yeah, you go to church every week if you're Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Can you get excommunicated if you don't go every week?
no, hell no. No, to get excommunicated, it's a pretty thin line. Technically, I could be excommunicated because I preach things that are counter to the church. Like, I'm actively saying things that could take members away from the church, so I could be excommunicated.
Oh, okay.
But
You haven't resigned?
No, I haven't. I actually was going to with Anna, and so we all know how that played out.
Yeah. So you're a card-carrying Mormon.
Not really. I don't carry any cards, and I don't believe in Mormon, and I
Hey,
identify as an atheist.
You're
so-
registered as one.
I was trying to make a funny.
Yeah, fuck you, and you're funny.
I just said you're registered as one.
Technically, yeah. Well, and hopefully, like, it's kind of been a dream of mine to get excommunicated, so maybe one day we'll become famous and I'll get excommunicated, and that would be awesome, right?
That would be awesome.
Yep.
So,
I hope we get famous soon and start getting paid for this.
no, it's not going to happen anytime soon.
I know, but hey, a guy can dream.
Yeah,
Right?
you guys should share, and then maybe I can get excommunicated. Share and like for Josh's excommunication from the
Oh,
Mormon
there
Church.
you go. Yeah, so if you're listening to this, share the hell out of it, just to get Josh
Yeah,
excommunicated.
post it on the LDS Facebook pages.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, Mormons.
Yeah. All right, your story, Joe.
Oh, is it my story again?
Yeah, Jesus. I've been trying to buy time so you could load up.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
thought your head was in the game, man.
my head is in the game. I'm loaded and ready to go. My head is in the game. Unlike the Jazz.
Just go.
Oh my God! Let's get this show on the road.
Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Science.
Joe,
No,
Joe,
no,
Joe.
No.
See, it's not me anymore. It's Matt.
Fucking brainwashed him.
Yeah, I did. I got to him. See, well, I was sorry. This is, I was listening to this psychologist on the way in, on the radio today, on the way into the podcast, and he was saying something that Trump does a lot, and it's he repeats himself, and stuff. And the way
It's
our
tremendous.
the way our brains are wired, that once you hear something enough, most people start to believe it and stuff. And so even though Trump isn't doing anything he said he was going to do, people still believe it because he said it so many times.
I mean, he is doing some stuff. Quite a bit of stuff he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
Except for, like, drain the swamp or
lock her up, crooked Hillary, and, all that stuff. So, but I just wanted to point that out. So I think maybe that was a little bit of magic I had right there with Matt. I've totally brainwashed him.
Joe. All right, let's do the story.
All right, so this is coming from I fucking love science, like my last story, but this story is a science story. More of a science story. Okay, so a gel that can act as an alternative to the reversible vasectomy has been trialed in monkeys and found to be 100% successful as a long-term and reliable male contraceptive. So this is, so it's just a gel. So listen to this. The product, Vasal Gel, hey, and TM, by the way, it's trademarked, has been previously trialed in rabbits, and now with the success of the trial on rhesus monkeys, researchers hope that in the future it could be a potential alternative option to the vasectomy for human males. The study is published in an open access journal, Basic and Clinical Andrology. Vasal Gel.
I'm going to laugh every time you say the name.
I know. I kind of looked over. I was waiting for it. Is a non-toxic and non-hormonal gel that is injected into the vas deferens, the tubes that carry sperm from the testes to the penis. The gel fills the internal cavities of the tubes and act as a barrier to the sperm. Previous tests in rabbits have shown that the procedure is easily reversible by dissolving the gel using ultrasound.
What the hell is
What it is it's a gel that is essentially a cork.
They just cork your. See now, the actual tubes they were talking about when you get a vasectomy, what they do, like what happened with me, because I have a vasectomy. What they do is they take those tubes. First they make an incision, they pull out those tubes, they cut them, they tie it in a knot, cauterize it, and then with me, he put a small titanium clamp on both ends.
Really?
Yeah. Nothing that would go off in a metal detector or anything like that. Not very big, but very interesting stuff. So let's see here. The researchers selected 16 monkeys for the surgery, 10 of which had already sired offspring. They were then monitored closely to ensure healthy recovery before being placed back into their housing groups, which included adult fertile females. They were monitored for a breeding season around 6 months, and the authors found that no pregnancies occurred during that time. The expected pregnancy rate for sexual mature females in similar normal conditions is about 80%. So, Vasagel.
Yes.
Coming to a store near you.
However, does not affect sperm production or hormone levels, so side effects should not be an issue. Also, unlike vasectomies where the tubes are cut and tied, making it harder, though not impossible, to reverse, the gel theoretically should be easily reversible using ultrasound, though this has only been tested in rabbits, not monkeys yet. But this is really, because that's the thing. There's plenty of female contraceptive out there, and I've, like me and I'm sure most men, wish there was for men. You start a new relationship or anything, pregnancies happen. And a lot of women are responsible and take care of it, but accidents do happen, and so a lot of men, and stuff. So, and it would just be good to have too.
Yeah, all of the responsibility shouldn't be on the woman.
I mean, but you can wear a condom and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know how a lot of people feel about condoms, and they're not.
Yeah, they're not the best feeling.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah. You want to go raw dog?
Now you can with Vasogel.
Vasogel, go raw dog.
All right. So my story is kind of, and it's going to be a little difficult to follow because I'm actually reading from the court documents where the court reviewed Donald Trump's ban and actually continued to stay on it. So meaning that it's been upheld in court to be blocked for the time being. And we'll talk about like his possible remedies after the fact. But so he essentially was disputing the court's jurisdiction, saying that they don't have power over the political branches. And here's what their response to this is: nonetheless, courts are not powerless to review the political branch's actions with respect to the matter of national security. To the contrary, while counseling deference to national security determinations of the political branches, the Supreme Court has made clear the government's authority and expertise in such matters do not automatically trump the court's own obligation to secure that the protection of the Constitution grants to individuals, even in times of war. So essentially what they're saying is, yes, we do have the power to review your executive orders. There's that. And then the other part that is important, which I'll get to in just a moment. So what do you guys think about that part, if you were listening, Joe?
I was listening.
So what do you think while I find the next part?
I don't know. I wasn't listening.
It's good. Checks and balances, man.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something we learn about in, elementary school?
Yeah.
The separation of powers and the checks and balances in any basic thing.
Well, I'm glad the court decided to keep the stay.
Yeah.
You know, it's important. You know, Trump can't just go around, this is law, this is law, this is law.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are worried about. And so here's also an explanation of the circuit court's decision. Our decision is guided by 4 questions: whether the stay application is made strong enough, showing that he is likely to succeed on the merits; whether the applicant will be inseparably or irreparably injured by absent a stay; whether issuance of the stay will substantially injure other parties interested in the proceedings; and where the public interest lies. And the court very clearly, and it breaks it down, very clearly thinks that they're going to succeed in their appeal of the thing, and they go into why here on the likelihood of success. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution prohibits the government from depriving individuals of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. U.S. Constitution Amendment 5. The government may not deprive a person of one of these protections or protected interests without providing notice and opportunity to respond, or in other words, the opportunity to present reasons not to proceed with the deprivation that they have or that have them considered. And so what this is saying is that the Fifth Amendment, so as a U.S. citizen, as a green card holder, as a visa holder, you have and the green card holder and the visa holder, you're given partial, essentially, rights. You're giving some of the rights that U.S. citizens have.
Yeah.
And any time that the government tries to take away your any of your interests, which are somewhat clearly spelled out in the Bill of Rights, there are some that aren't spelled out in the amendments, such as the right to privacy, which is a constitutionally guaranteed right and a fundamental right. The government cannot take those rights away without showing why and showing that it's the most that it's the best way to do so.
Yeah.
The most efficient way to do so. So since Donald Trump absolutely failed on every way of the merit, or every part of the merit, because, I mean, green card holders and visa holders have those rights. Like, you can't just take away rights of people who already have them without due process, which means that in this type of setting, that means you get a hearing and then you have an opportunity to comment in the legal proceeding. So he didn't even meet the most basic fundamental elements of due process. Like, he's such a moron. He really doesn't understand anything about civics. So,
but these so-called judges,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I was listening to audio when he had those sheriffs, when he had the meeting with the sheriffs and stuff, and he just kept turning around asking, like, his aides and stuff, like, he didn't quite understand it when you were listening to it. You could tell he didn't quite understand it. He kept asking his aides, well, what about this? What about that? And they were being extremely biased too. And so that's when he turns around and he's like, what's this guy's name? Let's ruin his career. You know? And it's like, because he didn't have listening to the audio, he didn't have a full understanding of what was being said. And stuff. They were just talking about how the sheriff's department was giving most of their assets that they stole, basically, to the police department, and now they're not getting most of those assets and stuff.
Some of those assets.
Yeah, some of those assets. And so he was like, oh, well, that's messed up. Where do you guys get your money? You know, and just he didn't quite understand that the law would protect people who weren't charged criminally and stuff, which is a good thing. He did not no one even mentioned that to him in the meeting and stuff that I
course.
listened to. So I don't know. It's you are who you keep around you. You know, you are the company you keep, and if the people he's surrounding himself with don't understand or are manipulating him as well, you know, which I believe is happening quite a bit. I don't know. He doesn't understand things at all.
Yeah, and his confidence is undermined by like his own doing. Like supposedly he heard that he was being run by Steve Bannon. Like Steve Bannon was making a lot of the decisions, and so he came out with a statement: "I'm my own man." And then people asked him, followed up, and said, "Well, why did you make him the part of national security team?" And he's like, "I didn't read it." And it's like, well, then you just told us that you are being run by somebody else. So obviously, we're going to assume that it's Steve Bannon unless you give us a reason not to. But yeah, I mean, God, he could really use a civics lesson, and he might understand why executive orders are unpopular and why his approval rating is going to drop. And I'm not sure how much it's going to drop until we face some economic consequences. Yeah. So, all right, well that's it for my story. So thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, we are going to have a short break, and stay tuned because coming up next, we're going to feature our interview with Shalise Blythe from the Satanic Temple.
Well, I wrote this song for the Christian youth. I want to teach kids the Christian truth. If you want to reach those kids on the street, then you got to do a rap to a hip-hop beat. So I gave my sermon an urban kick. My rhymes are fly, my beats are sick. My crew is big and it keeps getting bigger. That's 'cause Jesus Christ is my nigga. Woo! He's a life changer, miracle arranger, born to the virgin mom in a manger. Water to wine, he's a drink exchanger, and he died for your sins. I preach the word, that's my gig, and I rhyme better than Notorious Big. All the other MCs, I wish them well, but if you live in sin, you burn in hell.
Hey, Joe, is it just me, or do I feel some type of demonic presence?
I'm feeling something.
What could that be?
It's Satan. It's too early for this, man.
It's not too early for this. Well, we'd like to welcome, we have a guest from the Satanic Temple. Her name is Shalise Blythe, right?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you're the head of the chapter here in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, as far as Satanism goes, so we're going to ask you some questions, and then we'll kind of treat it like a conversation after that. But
Sure.
So, as far as Satanism goes, I've heard a couple of different things about what it is. I've heard some people say that Satanism is more on like the pagan side of things, and I've known people who have acted like there's spells and stuff. And then I've also heard of Satanism like people who adopt Satan as like a symbol of rebellion, but they're really atheists. Where do you fall on that scale?
Well, we are atheistic Satanists, so yes, we do adhere to the notion of Satan as is simply a literary figure of the ultimate rebel against the ultimate tyrannical force.
Cool.
Very cool.
So tell us a bit about like the Satanic Temple here in Utah.
So the Satanic Temple here in Utah, we were founded back in February of last year, so we're a year old as of this month.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it. And we, we're still in the process of building the community here. We're very, Satanists are a very small group here considering. So, but we do have a lot of support from the atheist group. So we have our core membership, but we also have a lot of allies and supporters, in different various groups, not just the atheist groups, but a lot of the different ones around. We have a few, Christian supporters and, people who identify as other, but, so we're, still working on trying to expand ourselves within the community, not necessarily trying to recruit more people, but more, being within the community, doing things, that benefit others, outside of ourselves.
So you want to have some sort of presence.
Yeah.
But you do have some Christian support, you said?
Yeah, they understand. So when we say we have these supporters, they clearly don't identify as Satanists, but they do understand and they do support the actions that we get involved in. When we're dealing with a lot of the separation of church and state, or women's reproductive health, or the Baphomet statue that we have, they understand what it is we're trying to do, and they support it. So
okay, that's cool.
So let's rewind to a year ago. How did it come into? How did that happen? Yes.
So I was involved with the Satanic Temple prior to getting chapterhood. I had been a part of the community for a couple years at its, not at its inception, but a little bit afterwards, and got to know a lot of the people within the community, and people at the top, and other chapter heads, other Satanists. And so when time came around, they had a moratorium on chapters because they were just expanding so quickly, and they really needed to kind of get the formula together as far as this is how we form chapters, this is how we want them to function, and not in a way of this is how we need everything done. Just like here are the basics of what we expect, and every chapter has its own flavor, so they're free to run it as they see fit. So I basically just stuck in the ear of everybody for a long time, saying, I think Utah would really benefit from having a chapter here, and, we have the people, we have the support. And so I had my interview with Lucian Greaves December of, what year is this, 2015.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was an interview at the time because I wasn't going for chapter head.
Okay.
I kind of saw myself more as somebody who could, help garnish the support and get the people, and then, they could determine who could be chapter head. I never in a million years thought it would be me. But so I had the call, and, we talked a lot about, why I felt Utah needed a chapter, what, things we could do, what it would benefit us as a state. And I didn't hear anything for a little bit. And then, but, in February, I just got an email saying, hey, Utah's got its chapter, and you're the chapter head.
Awesome.
Like, oh, great.
That's good luck.
I heard Lucian's a pretty chill dude. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, he's someone who I've looked up to, and I've actually heard about the moratorium. I didn't know that got lifted and we were allowed to have a chapter, but I knew about it a couple of years ago, actually, back when American Atheist came here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's always interested me. And so, like, what drew you to Satanism as a thing back in 2015?
Well, I'd always known about Satanism. When I was a teenager, I was raised just generic Christian. I wasn't LDS or anything, just a very, very New Testament, way of growing up. But when you're a teenager and you're kind of exposing yourself to other thoughts, other ways of life out there, I came across the Satanic Bible, which is written by Anton LaVey, and he's the one that founded the Church of Satan back in the 60s. And, I read it and thought it was kind of revolutionary, just in the fact that it was so in line with what I thought, what was the case for a lot of things. And when you're raised in a, conservative household, and you're in a conservative state, and, you're raised with certain values and ways of thinking, it's just incredible to read stuff like that, say, individual will, and you don't have to worship a god to do good things or to be a good person. It's all about kind of the worship of self and, the greatness within you. And so that's some awesome stuff to read when you're a teenager and you're kind of getting away from your Christianity. But so I read that, and it was, for me, it just wasn't everything I wanted as far as how I felt about things. So it was kind of like a 60-40. Really liked a lot of what it said, but there was also a lot I disagreed with. So it's and then I read it again a few years later just to maybe see if there was something I missed. I wasn't putting enough thought or analysis onto it. And again, COS was just never the thing for me. And, at the time, that was what, you think of Satanism. They were, they were the major satanic organization at the time. So it was always in the back of my head, but I just identified as just an atheist for a lot of years. And then the Satanic Temple, when they came out with their Baphomet statue campaign, is when I became aware of them. And I looked into it. I thought it was really fascinating, and I read the tenets, and it clicked. It was everything about Satanism that I really respected and really liked, but it had everything that I thought was missing. So yeah, I identified heavily with it. I read it and I was like, oh, well, shit, I guess I'm a Satanist. And so yeah, I became a member and got involved with, we have like a discussion forum, so they created that around the time that I joined up, and got to know everybody and really found my tribe. So that's how
Great.
I got involved.
Yeah. So, were you ready with the question, Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what would you say the main purpose or the couple main purposes of the Satanic Temple, what they are? What are the goals?
The goals.
If you could sum it up easily.
Well, the Satanic Temple is, we're an atheistic, satanic organization, and our purpose is to, be who we are, and we obviously have a lot of activism that we do, which is adheres to how it affects us, as a religious organization. So, we, everything that we get involved in our activism has, a lot to do with, like separation of church and state, and then our own tenets. We get involved with the reproductive rights, which, holds our tenet, the bodies and Bible subject to one's will alone. That's why we get involved with that. So, to kind of establish ourselves as a, just as a real religious organization, we do feel that we are that. We definitely fit within like the legal definition of what a religion is, and we've constantly been challenged on that. If you're atheist and you call yourself Satanist, how are you a religion? And so we try to point out that we have every facets of what a religion is. We have the cultural identity, we have the community, we have the set values, and it's a real identity. It's just there's no supernaturalism to it. And when we talk about religion, we also have to realize and remember that certain religions, when we in this society, they have rights and privileges that all other groups don't. So if we're saying that a religion only is valid if they have some kind of superstitious element to it, then you're saying that only the superstitious, they're the only ones that have the rights to those privileges and exemptions and stuff. So we feel that we have every other facet to a religion that's important, that really establishes what that is. So a lot of that is establishing that, and also being active where we're see fit, and we have a lot of chapters that are forming, so it's ever expanding. We're international, so we have a chapter in Mexico, we have chapters in Britain, we ever expanding. There are a few other ones. I don't know how active they are anymore, but there are some other ones. We know that other people are trying to get some in other countries as well. So
cool. If I wanted to read the tenets and catch up on it, is there a website I could go to?
Yeah, it's just thesatanictemple.com.
I think we've gone there before. The Ten Commandments versus the
Satanic.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that
which I
article
love
was floating around
10
for a
times
while.
better.
Yeah.
100 times.
Yeah, but Satanism coming to a town near you. That's great. It's funny. Also, religious arguments, how they'll say atheism is a religion when they want to debate somebody, but then when it becomes like we want recognition, and the
You're not a religion.
Yeah, you're not a religion.
You're not, yeah.
But yeah, and legally speaking, I am studying law, but at a paralegal level.
Nice.
I find it. Satanism fascinating because it has a stronger stance, because it's hard for Christians to say Satanism isn't a real thing, because they're like scared of Satan, as opposed to like atheists, they can say you're not a religion. But so Matt had some articles about the
So I wanted to ask you about some things going on here in Utah, the after school program, and some other things going on. So we can start with the after school program. Can you tell us about that and Yeah, just tell us about it, and we can get the word out there so maybe you can get some more kids in there.
Yeah, so we have our after-school Satan Club. It's at Vista Elementary School, and we're scheduled to be there every second Wednesday of the month between 3:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. And it is under a, this isn't sponsored by the school or the district. This is simply a, private organization coming in and renting space from the school. And yeah, it's going really well. We had our open house in January, and then we had our very first class this last Wednesday, February 8th, and went really well. So we have another one in March, and so we're going to just basically just go throughout the rest of the school year. Is what our agreement has. So
cool. Do you get a lot of protesters at that, or
surprisingly no. It's really interesting. Portland and Washington. I mean, Oregon and Washington. They both have their clubs as well. And yeah, they were met with so many protesters when they started, and not a single protester showed up for ours. So
and
that is so surprising
because I feel like they're more liberal than we are.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And I think that it's not. So sometimes I think that the press doesn't play things. So locally, I have never heard of this until Matt kind of brought it up to my attention. So I don't think that it's anybody's organized against it per se.
Yeah, there was no. So when we first announced last year, it was late July, early August. Oh my God, when was it? June or July? Anyway, when we first announced that we were going to be doing this, I mean I was doing interviews for a full straight week with our local media, and there was a big uproar about it. But it's taken us a while to get to the point where we went through all the hoops and all the rental agreements and everything with the district, and finally got in. So I think it would have been a different case had we immediately gone in with the start of the school year, but because it took us a while, people kind of forget. All the hysteria kind of dies down after a while, and but I also didn't want to turn this into a media circus either. I mean, I had no control over the major announcement of it, but as far as everything on a local scale, I had control about who I talked to and, released information to. And it essentially came down to not wanting to turn this into a circus, because this isn't, this isn't a media stunt for us. I mean, this is legitimate. We have we built a curriculum. We really feel like we're doing something good for the kids. So when we had our first one, I didn't really talk to anybody. Like the Trib, they were the only ones that were monitoring it, and they came to me and asked me about it. But everyone else, it was after the fact. So the Trib comes out with their article, and everyone else hops on the bandwagon. So, but yeah, it was purposely done that way.
I got a quick question. I got
Sure.
in an argument with somebody about the after-school program, and they were like, "I can understand how you guys fight against church and state, but why are they teaching the kids evil things?
Why aren't we?
Or why are you?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think you understand exactly what the Satanic Temple is.
Yeah.
And I taught them, or I told them that you guys, the curriculum is mostly science and stuff like that.
Yeah,
correct?
we're not teaching Satanism. In
Yeah,
that
see,
class,
and that's I was like,
Can you go into what you were teaching them a little bit?
Well, the curriculum is set up to, we have our values of, rationality, scientific inquiry, everything like that. So everything that we're teaching is absolutely in line with that, without any mention of Satanism whatsoever. Because these are things, these kind of things are good for kids no matter what background they have at all. I mean, this seems like something that everyone should want to know, or, develop a skill for. So yeah, all of our classes have something to do with one class will deal with how to handle situations where they come across debate, like how do you respectfully debate somebody if you have two opposing views. How do you we present them with a task and say, okay, we have this task, you have to complete it. How do you solve this problem? How do you use critical thinking and to solve this? So it's all a lot of fun. It's all kid based, but those are the skills that they're developing with these tasks at hand. So it's different. Each class has a different theme, and we try to match it with the month. We're a little behind, so we're so we only have the 4, but it's. Yeah, no Satanism whatsoever, no evil, nothing like that. But
And the opposite side, the Christian after-school programs, they are teaching Jesus and that sort of thing. So
yeah, they're so the other group, the ones that kind of inspired us to get involved in this was the Good News Club, and it's hosted by the Child Evangelism Fellowship, and they're very, very Old Testament-y. The sole intent for these clubs is to proselytize and recruit children, and they actually use those children to recruit other children. And it's not, and the disturbing part of it is that it's not just, they'll say that they're just teaching Christ's love and everything like that. But if you actually read the materials, because we have copies of that. It's teaching kids that they're born into sin. There's nothing they can do about it, and the product of sin is death, and threatening kids with this idea that if they don't do things their way, they'll burn in hell, or their loved ones will. So it's pretty important material if you think about it, and I think most Christians would actually agree. I mean, this group is. I think they're even at odds with the Catholic Church, and that says a lot.
Wow.
So this is stuff that I think if other Christians were to know that this stuff was being taught at school, they would object to it as well. And so, part of the purpose of having an after-school club is to kind of complement and contrast what is already being offered, and to kind of shed some light of what's been going on in the schools, and really having parents question whether or not they're okay with that, because kids, it's hard for them to separate the two, because they go to school to learn, right?
Yeah.
And they see the teachers there, they see that setting as a learning setting. So if that's the kind of things that they're learning in school, they're taking it as literal fact, as opposed to this is just they don't separate the religious aspect from the other aspects of it. So.
Well, like the school is an authority to them, and then they take everything they learn from the schools as fact, and then when they turn around and teach all that Christian nonsense, they're taking that as fact as well.
Yeah, these authority figures are telling them this is how it is, and because of the setting it is, and and it also kind of goes into this idea of separation of church and state. It's do you really want any religious group, and that includes our group? I mean, do you want any religious group in our schools teaching children? So, we have nothing controversial or abhorrent in our curriculum, but hopefully, I know that the school district sent out a letter to the parents at Vista saying, if you have we are abiding by the law. They are lawful. They are within the law. They're not doing anything, bad. But if this is an issue for you, contact your lawmakers. Make them aware that you're not okay with it. Yeah. And that's good too. I mean, we're of the opinion that either you let everyone in or you don't allow anybody in. So.
And I did hear one kid left the school.
I heard that one kid was removed from that school because of it.
Well, now we just got to find where that kid is and get another after-school program in that school. Just chase him around.
No, you're chasing around the parents. I feel bad for the kid.
No, I know.
Yeah. Well, depending on how well the school year goes and how much interest we have, we could probably expand into other schools. It just kind of depends on how this year goes. So.
Great.
I
can't wait till one gets in Provo. That would definitely make news. There's just no way.
That would be a completely different story. Yeah.
So how was the district, the school district, to work with? Were they nice or okay?
Yeah, nice, respectful. They knew that we were coming in and we were requesting the same right to host a club as any other after school club. So
now, do we have a lot of Christian after school clubs here?
Yeah, I mean, and the big one is the institute. Because you can take free time and you go off campus to go to institute, or I'm trying to think.
Seminary.
Yeah.
I remember seminary.
That's I mean,
that's a big one.
Yeah.
And most of it is during school, so it's definitely part of the day. That was my favorite class to take because you could slough it the easiest.
Well, I remember most of my best. So in middle school, me and my friends, we were all gothic and rebels and all that stuff, and then. My buddy JD, my best friend at the time, JD, he was extremely gothic and, into the Satanism a lot more than I was, but he took seminary class and stuff, and he loved it.
Would
He actually went?
Oh,
he
he would
attended?
go. Yeah, he would go.
Would he debate or would he just like?
He
sit
would
there?
debate most of the time.
That's-
He would get
that's
in
awesome.
trouble.
Yeah, if I had to do things all over again, that's probably what I would do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he kept trying to get me to go, and I was like, no, I don't want nothing to do with with any God thing. You know, I was over it at that point. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know what seminary was. Because I didn't grow up LDS, so everyone's like, "Oh, we're going to seminary." I'm like, I have no idea what the hell that is.
Yeah.
But,
How did your I am curious. How did your parents take it when you kind of like edged towards atheism and then Satanism? Because my background, I was raised LDS, and they didn't take it very well at first.
So the nice thing about my parents is that they, I was trying to avoid the conversation for as long as possible, and I tried to limit what they were saying once I got more involved with the Satanic Temple. But it really was just a, hey, we know, and we just want you to, they took the time to actually look into it before ever having a conversation with me about it. So they know, they accept it. They've been really supportive of me. Obviously they don't like it, but they do support me, and they realize that this isn't just a phase. This is very sincere to me, and this is who I am, and they know that we're not doing bad things, we're not bad people. So
Very cool.
It's been okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
So we also wanted to talk about the Arkansas bill. Have you heard about this yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we were just to kind of sum it up for the listeners. Matt, do you have a breakdown or?
Yeah, so Arkansas passed a bill 91-0 to try and block a statue of Baphomet, and so they awarded a Christian group the right to put the Ten Commandments there, right? So then the Satanic Temple went and requested to put a Baphomet statue, and they are trying their damnedest to stop that.
Yeah, so how it went was back in, I want to say 2012, I could be off, but a few years ago, Arkansas passed I don't know if it was a resolution or a law, but stating that they could, build a Ten Commandment statue on, in their Monument Park is what they're calling it. And so it's been sponsored by Senator Jason Rapert, Stanley Rapert.
She knows it a little bit.
And so he's been really pushing for it, and it will be privately funded at the very least, but it will be on display on Capitol grounds. And so, knowing that, we applied and said we have our own statue that we'd like to donate as well. And so we applied, and we've been going through the process of getting it approved. So we have been talking to the commission board, showing our plans, and they've been asking us about how it's going to be erected, and how it's gonna, there's like a pedestal or something you have to put it on to cement it in place. So we've given all our designs, all the construction stuff, and it's going through the process. But this thing with the 91-0, what happened was, after we had gone through the process of the approval, and we're still in it, so we're scheduled to have a public hearing on it, so it's just the very next step of the whole application process. They knew that we were going forward, so they decided to pass a resolution saying that we couldn't, saying that any proposed statue any proposed donation had to be approved by the legislature. So they were trying to deny us, even though, deny us after the facts, but even though we're already going through the legal process. So it's been challenged. Our lawyer, Stu DeHaan, he's out in Arizona. He sent them a demand letter saying, we have the right to do this. That's a big no-no. So after he sent the letter, we got our response, and we're tentatively scheduled to have our due process. So we're scheduled to have our public hearing sometime soon, I think in May sometime. So
Great.
Yeah. So they're trying. Stanley is trying really, really hard to fight us, but he.
So who would be in charge of the approval then? So there's a commission board that oversees stuff like that, and they're the ones who approve or disapprove it, or approve or disapprove it. So.
So, and do you have any feeling about what will likely happen, or do you already think it's going to be a long battle?
It really depends. It's been really surprising how much pushback we're getting from just this one senator. He's, Stanley is really adamant about not having us there. But I think it's going to go one of two ways. Either we all have our statues and we'll, have ours next to the Ten Commandments, or maybe they'll decide to do away with it whatsoever. Either one is good with us. So
yeah, and like Senator Inhofe is somebody who I think is faking not knowing anything about global warming. Do you think most of these politicians who are passing these things are ignorant to what the Satanic Temple is about, or do you think that that they knowingly are just trying to stand up for their Christian constituents?
Oh, they know.
They know.
They're smart enough to know.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought, and that's the way I think most of the people who stand out publicly, like Ted Cruz, who stands out on a platform and says, "Oh, anti-Satan, non-Christian stuff," and I just can't think that he's ignorant of a lot of the facts, even though he acts like he is.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all of our information is out there. If they take 2 seconds to look at our website, they'll know exactly what we're about and who we are. So it's really just making a statement about the fact that we're Satanists. I mean, it's...
Yeah, and I kind of ask about the symbol of Baphomet. Baphomet isn't Satan, right?
No, it's just an old pagan representation of the elements that the high and above, and male female. So it's just kind of consolidation of the opposites.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that for sure.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's cool.
Yeah, it's been around a while.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have any other questions? Because I have some. But
go for it, Josh.
Go for it.
So kind of the future of Satanism, do you see it as being like a community thing in the future, or do you think that Satanism will eventually serve its purpose and die out? Like a form of community, like that people will gather around, like instead of having, because I've known of some church or some atheist groups trying to do like a Sunday school thing, but not really Sunday school, but just to create a sense of community, like so that people have something to go to, like a club.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Satanism has been around. I mean, as an organized religion, as we know, since the 60s. I mean, Satanism has been around a lot longer than that, but, you think of Satanism, you think of Church of Satan mostly, and, that's been around since the 60s. But, I think Satanism in general, I mean, that's kind of where it's going. It's very community-driven, and obviously different sects have different ideas of what that means to them. COS does things their way, we do things our way. We clearly disagree on those things, but as a whole, Satanism, I think it's going to, continue to be relevant, throughout, for as long as it possibly can. I don't think it's going to fizzle out. I think it's only going to become stronger. People, really do identify with this, with this idea of, being a part of a group that's embracing our outsider status, and, either they're members or they're allies, but, they, as far as TST is concerned, we are very much geared towards that community, and we're growing so fast. We have people applying for chapters all over the place. We have so much support and people coming out and saying, I'm definitely a member. This is my tribe. This is my group. So I think it's just going to keep expanding and really become a solid community.
And you're actually doing good, like what you said about the after school. You're actually teaching kids something worthwhile. So. Right. I think that's great.
And they can apply it to, every aspect of their lives, no matter their background. I mean, they could be, they can be Christian and still apply those things to their lives, and it doesn't conflict, I don't think.
So you have had kids go to the after school program. Most of them, what are their backgrounds? If you
various,
could say.
Various. Yeah. I mean, we don't really ask.
Oh, okay.
It's really not. Yeah, us knowing their backgrounds for us, it's not a requirement. We really don't. Care.
And besides the school stuff, do you guys get together and hang out? Is there events that you guys do or sponsor?
Oh, just the chapter, the TSC?
Yeah.
So
your chapter.
we've so last year we had our big unbaptism event, and that was really a lot of fun. It was this really fun big ritual that we did. And ever since then, we've been trying to, do a lot of community stuff. So we had like our monthly, we would either do meet and greets or just, we did like a Halloween party one time. We did a bar crawl. That was a lot of fun. So we're trying to do a little bit of both. We've been a little quiet the last couple months simply because, the holidays get around. We're really busy. And We're trying to kind of regroup a little bit. But we're planning. We have a campaign in the works that we're working on, something pretty big, and we want to do these monthly meetings again to try and not only for our members but for people who are interested. So we do a bit of both. So we'll do like little events, and then we'll do like meet and greets or information meetings, stuff
So
like that.
how does one find out about these events? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who listen that would be interested in seeing more about it.
Sure. Everything that we do, we post on our Facebook, and we also have we have our Facebook group. It's just the Satanic Temple / Utah chapter. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Twitter. So we try to update anytime we schedule an event. We always post it as such. So we try to make sure everyone knows what's going on.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. How many members do you have in Utah and nationwide? Do you know those numbers?
Nationwide, I'm not sure what those numbers are. I know it's in the tens of thousands, I think. People who sign up and say that they're members. But as far as the Utah chapter, we have people who are active members. So people who identify as Satanists, as members of TST. There's a handful of us as far as active. Anywhere between 6 to 8. But we have a lot of people who identify as members who are more hands off. They more of the. We're members, but they don't want to be necessarily hands on. They'll show up to events and stuff like that. But as far as the planning and putting stuff together, they're just like, oh, we'll just show up.
Yeah.
So that ranges. We've got a few dozen of those, maybe even more that I'm not sure about. But
So how do you become a member?
so you can just go onto our website, thesatanictemple.com, and there's a part where you can go to membership, and you essentially just read through the tenets, and there's a little thing saying by agreeing to this, I am saying I'm a member of the Satanic Temple, and I will adhere to not going around saying I'm a representative and stuff like that. And then you just give in the email address, and there you go, you're a member.
Cool. I think you might have 3 new members later
Nice.
today.
And
Oh, yeah.
And so, what's been the most fulfilling part of being a head of a chapter and being involved in this for you?
The community aspect, kind of, finding my tribe, finding the group of which I didn't think existed, or, being a part of something I never thought I had. So getting to know the people and, being involved with a lot of the stuff that we've been doing. I feel very adamantly about, some of the stuff that we're doing with the reproductive rights. Gray Faction is another thing that I'm, heavily supportive of, and that's the identifying the cultish, the false satanic panic within the mental health field, identifying people that are, instilling this bullshit into their patients' heads, and kind of continuing this idea of ritualistic abuse, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Just doing good, doing good things, and having my tribe, and I really like my group. Here in Utah, we have a really good group. I mean, we're small. I mean, we're really small, but it's a good group of people, and they're and we're really trying to accomplish a lot of good things this year. So.
I think it's good to have people you can relate to, and people you can connect with. As a human being, we all need that, and and it's hard when you are part of a group that is small.
Yeah.
Whether being an atheist or part of the Satanic Temple, it's good to connect with people who have the same like-minded ideas.
Yeah.
So I just want to read a little bit of this article, and I don't know if you guys have plans to do anything about this.
Sure.
Or
I just want to point out, you can read the Satanic Bible for free. I went to your guys' website. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm on their website now checking out the merchandise.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
hilarious.
yeah,
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Satanic Bible isn't our canon, so
Okay.
Yeah, we would gear you more towards reading Revolt of Angels by Anatole France, or something like that. That's more within our canon.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would read it. I think it's got some good stuff in there, but that's not that's more Church of Satan canon than it is ours. So.
Oh, okay.
So Oklahoma Republicans advance bill to put 10 Commandments display in public schools. After years a years-long battle, which they lost over a monument outside the Capitol building, State Rep John Bennett has now proposed House Bill 2177, which would allow posting of the commandments in all public buildings, including courthouses and public schools. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about this, and do you guys have any plans, if so, to...
I don't know about plans, but we're definitely aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could get little Baphomet statues in all public schools.
Yeah. No, I say you use contrast. Like I say you put up the 10 commandments of the Satanic Temple, and just let people read the difference between the two.
Yep. Which one's actually good?
Yeah. Which one do you like better?
Yeah. Well, if you go in a lot of schools, you'll see stuff like "In God We Trust." We've noticed that.
Yeah, and that's been one of the most disappointing legal battles that I've heard of. It was the "In God We Trust," because they're treating it like it's a motto, so therefore it has no religious aspect to it. Is what the Supreme Court the last ruling from the Supreme Court came down as. So that means "In God We Trust" is completely legitimate and is non-religious.
Is non-religious.
Yeah, "In God We Trust" is not
when they
religious.
mention Lord in the Constitution, that's super religious, right?
Yeah, the year of our Lord.
Oh, see, they're Christian.
We're Christian.
Yeah.
We're a Christian nation.
Well, one of our chapters is working on. They have their own campaign of trying to replace "In God We Trust" with "E Pluribus Unum."
Okay.
The original motto. So they're kind of working on that. I don't know where they are at that, but I know that's kind of something that our other chapters have done. Been working on.
Awesome.
I like what the Satanic Temple does. I love it. Every time I read an article or see any news story about it, I just...
Yeah, and I've covered it for law class a few times.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
No, just keep an eye out for, as far as the Utah chapter, we've got a big campaign that we're working on right now, and we'll be announcing... I don't know, within a month or two, so keep an eye out for that. And then we're also going to be scheduling like meet and greets and stuff like that for people who are interested. And that's not just Satanists. I mean, anybody can come out and, be involved and see if there's anything that they want to help us with or anything like that. So. And
you've been talking about it kind of abstractly as an event. Are you allowed to spoil any of that or no?
Not yet, no.
Not yet? Okay.
I was going to ask the same thing.
Damn it. Damn it.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
Teaching us a little bit about the Satanic Temple. It was great.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that was our interview with Shalise Blythe, and she was fucking awesome. So thank you guys for checking us out and for listening to the podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and rate, especially if you want to get me excommunicated. And we'll see you guys next week.
Alrighty, see you guys.
Remember, Josh, to think. Yeah. I stole it. Totally stole your spotlight.